A lot has happened since the last time we was on God and Country. Well, we had a debate, July 4th, just all kind of news, breaking, just a lot of interesting things have taken place. I am glad to tell you that Reed Cooley is back in studio. He's been out, he's been sick, and he's been dealing with some health issues, but I'm so glad, Reed, I'm glad that you're able to be back in studio with us.
Thank you, Dan. I regret I wasn't here last week to interrupt you, so to speak, but I am glad to be back here.
I missed you, man. I missed you. But I am glad that you're doing better and you're able to be back. Man, a lot's happened, though, since the last episode. And even so more since, you was on, the show last. A lot's happened. And I know that, the debate took place, and just watching Sleepy Joe up there on the debate stage, and I even read where he admitted, I guess, to falling asleep, a little bit, like dozing off on the debate stage. I mean, that is, I just have no words. And I don't want to keep beating the dead horse, about the debate, because we've done talked about the debate so much. And I know the news media and everybody's talked about the debate so much. But Donald Trump, he just honestly just wiped the floor with Joe Biden. Even Joe Biden admits, that he had a bad night. But I will take it a step further. He's had more than just a bad night. It's been a bad 3.5 years, for our country. As you look at, the direction of our country, where our country was before he became president to where our country's at now, 3.5 years into his presidency. I mean, it's unbelievable at when you look at the world, at what's happening in a lot of countries that would not be happening if Donald Trump were president. Looking at inflation here in our own country, just the price of groceries has skyrocketed, since Joe Biden has taken office. And so he's had much worse than just a bad night. I mean, he's had a bad 3.5 years. It's been horrible. I mean, absolutely insane, whenever you look at things, that has happened and taken place. I want to talk about this though, because I read something, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Reed. I read something this past week about Hunter, about Joe Biden's son. And what I read was that Hunter is now the gatekeeper, to Joe Biden. So if you want to get to the president, if you want to get the president Joe Biden, you have to go through Hunter. Now, why would you think? I have my own personal, thoughts on that. But what's your take on that? Whenever you hear that, that to get to the president, that Hunter Biden is now the gatekeeper, the one who was
like his handler, kind of.
Yeah, I guess his handler, but you can't get to Joe unless you go through Hunter.
Well, that's an interesting interpretation. I've never heard that. I've never encountered that particular claim. My first remark is why? Out of all the people that Joe Biden could have around him, I mean, he presumably, as the president of the United States, he has access to any number of competent people, any number of competent handlers. I mean, despite obvious philosophical differences between us and Biden, presumably any president of the United States would be able to bring on anybody who could serve as gatekeeper, so to speak, like what you're describing here. I don't know what to make of that. I guess I'm wondering what your thoughts are.
So my thoughts are many. I have many thoughts of considering that. I do know that I do believe that Biden's family knows that the president's having issues.
It's not just Biden's family. Everybody's the whole world knows that at this point.
So whenever you watch him speak, you watch him on the debate stage, you watch him, at his rallies, there is something absolutely, you watch him at the G7 summit, wherever you watch him at, that there's something wrong.
Pretty much any point. Correct. I don't remember the last time he had a successful speech or a successful campaign event or anything. Like when was the last time he gave any kind of speech or any kind of address without a gaffe? I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's bad. And so I think that they're trying to protect him. What's sad is this, Reed. Here's what is sad. It's like, why? Why would they just, listen, me and Joe Biden probably don't agree on much of anything, right? If there was 100 different issues, he would probably tell you that he loves America and I love America, and that's probably where we would separate. So, but if you look at his career as a politician, he's had a very long, and in the Democrats' eyes, a very long, successful career, as a politician. I mean, he was senator, vice president under Obama, and now president for the last 4 years. My question is, why is his wife and son not letting him ride off into the sunset? I mean, the man's he's in his 80s. He's been there for 40 plus years. Why not let him ride off into the sunset and enjoy the last 10 years or so of his life instead of carrying him around all over the nation, having these debates and having these rallies and just making a complete fool of himself, just to be honest with you.
Well, I considered this very question, actually, as I was on my way here to the studio this morning. It seems to me that Biden could absolutely sort of ride off into the sunset heroically even. He could say that he recognized that he was no longer fit to hold the office or be the main opponent to Donald Trump. So he chose heroically, gallantly to step aside and let someone else come in to defeat big bad Trump, right? And I guarantee there are talks just like that happening from between ranking Democratic officials and him and probably his wife and his son as well. Why they don't do that, I think the answer is probably very simple. I think it comes down to they finally have power. Joe Biden has had his eyes on the presidency for probably his entire political career,
right.
if we're being honest. And I think they finally have their clutch on that power and they don't want to let it go. Just like I was telling you before we started filming here, I think that Joe Biden's most vigorous defender at this point seems to be his wife. The greatest doctor of all time, Jill Biden. I think that she's the one factor I think that is going to keep Joe Biden here as long as possible is his wife. Never underestimate just how influential, a politician's spouse can be on whatever decisions that politician makes or doesn't make, right? I think that's what's going on here is they finally have power that the Bidens have wanted for a very long time. They probably feel like they've waited patiently for all this time. They finally have it and they're just not ready to give it up yet.
And something else to read about this, it is not anything unusual, for people to get older and have issues. I mean, it happens. Every one of us, and everybody that's watching this show today, all of us are going to get old, right? I mean, hopefully. I mean, we all going to get old. I'm 42 years old, and hopefully I can make it to 84, and 90 years old. And as you get older, your mind is not as sharp as it once was. Your body, listen, I used to play basketball, and I know you might not believe me, but I used to be able to dunk a basketball. Back 20 years ago, I used to be able to come down and dunk a basketball. I used to be able to shoot threes pretty decent. I used to be able to shoot free throws pretty good. I used to be able to play defense pretty good. But I'm 42 years old, Reed. I can't dunk a basketball anymore. I mean, I can still shoot threes and I can still shoot free throws, but I can't dunk anymore. I'm not good for full court anymore. I mean, I could play half court, and I really like to play, just stand out there at that three-point line. My point is, as we get older, our mind is not as sharp, our body's not as sharp. All of us have grandparents or dads or moms who have gotten older, and we watch them as they get older not to be able to do the things that they once used to be able to do.
And we try to take care of them.
Absolutely.
Which is, I think, the concern you're bringing up here. Why has Joe Biden's family not stepped in and helped him the way it seems like, we would with our grandparents and so on?
My wife's grandma, Mimi, she moved in with us for like the last 2 years of her life, and because she could not take care of herself. And so she lived here in our home, for the last 2 years. And my wife took care of her, took very good care of her, and gave her medicine and fed her, make sure that she ate and made sure she had a place to sleep and all those type of things. And so why the Biden family is not doing this for the president is it's mind-boggling that they would want power so much that they are willing to let this man get up there and make a complete fool of himself. Because on the debate night, let's not make any ifs, ands, buts about it. He made a complete fool of himself. I mean, Donald Trump ran circles around him. He made a complete fool of himself. Reed, I want to move on to something else, and I mentioned this to you before because I know there's a lot that we want to cover today. And I'm making a lifestyle change, and I'm trying to live healthier. And so I told my wife, I watched this video the other day, and there was this guy, and he said 7 things you ought to do before 7 o'clock in the morning. And I sent that to my wife, and I said, I'm going to start trying to do these 7 things before 7 o'clock in the morning. And they're very simple things, like walking for 30 minutes, reading 10 pages in a book. Writing out your to-do list for the day. There's several good things in that list, but it's 7 things to do before 7 o'clock. And I even quit drinking. I'm not going to say I've quit drinking sweet tea, but I am cutting back on how much sweet tea that I'm drinking. Now I'm drinking coffee. And so this is very different for me. Matter of fact, last Sunday morning at church, I drank a cup of coffee. Yesterday, I drank a cup of coffee. And now this morning, I'm drinking a cup of coffee. And so that is 3 cups of coffee that I have drank in the last, 9 or so days, which is more cups of coffee than I've drank in my entire life.
Hold on. So you're only averaging 1 cup of coffee every 3 days? That's nothing, I can promise you.
But I'm gonna start drinking probably a cup of coffee every morning.
Okay.
And so I just want to live healthier. I want to try to live as long as possible, and be healthy though. And I know so many people, we battle our health. There's a lot of things that we would do if we had better health. There's things that if we felt better, that we would do. And so I just want to try to, my wife is very much a health nut. And so I just want to try to do better in this health, because there's a lot of things that we want to accomplish. And so, and it's a lot easier to accomplish these things whenever we're healthier. And so I want to encourage all of our listeners, to let's try to take better care of our bodies, so we as conservatives, can do more, in this political arena, because I think it's very important.
Healthy conservatives are more effective conservatives, right?
That's a great, yes, we need to, yes, I like that. Say that again.
Yeah, healthy conservatives are more effective conservatives.
I like that. We need to use that for sure.
So what other changes are you making besides replacing, the iconic sweet tea with coffee? What else is going on?
So I'm gonna try to get up earlier, in the morning, try to read more, try to spend more time with God, try to focus more on certain things as far as helping get out, our conservative message, and maybe trying to write more, just try to narrow down some things to try to really focus on, the conservative message. And Reed, here's why. I've been really paying attention over the last couple of weeks to the Republican Party. As you know, if you have watched this show, I'm a Republican, right? I mean, I'm a very strong, and don't make no ifs, ands, buts about it. I'm a Republican. And whenever it comes to the party, now let me just say this: I'm a Christian first, right? I'm a Christian first. I'm a Christian. And so, but then I'm a Republican, and I vote Republican, and I help get Republicans elected. I'm on the executive committee in our county as far as Republican. I'm on the Republican club, and so I'm part of the Republican Party. But I'm hearing some talks from different people about how the Republican Party needs to broaden the tent. We need to broaden the tent to allow, some more people inside our tent. And whenever they talk about broaden the tent, they're not talking about broaden the tent to take in more conservatives. They're talking about broaden the tent to take in more the left.
And perhaps some moderates as well, right? Moderates. Correct. And the left.
Yeah. Now, I'm not hearing this from within our party, within the state party here in Mississippi.
Good.
This is coming from the national level. Of course, I think that in our state party, now, of course, there are some Republicans in our state that would love to see the party go to the more left. But I think that the leadership in our party here in Mississippi, I do think that that's not their goal or desire, is to go more to the left. But on the national level, and I was listening to the President Trump, during the debate, and I heard him say a few things, that made me think that this is what, on the national level, this is what some people really want to do in order to try to get more votes. But if you're not careful, what's going to happen is, as you're trying to broaden your base to reach out into some of these different types of communities, you're going to you're going to alienate some other groups.
You're going to alienate the people. You're the backbone of the party. That's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to alienate
the ones that got you elected.
Yep.
You're going to alienate the ones that made the Republican Party what it is today, to try to bring in some of this woke left agenda. And as you're trying to bring them in, I'm not teaming up with certain groups of people.
Right.
Like, it's just not happening, right? I'm not teaming up with pro-choice people. Like, I'm pro-life 100%. I don't think that, that we should be even talking about killing babies. Like, I'm pro-life 100%. And I'm not pro-choice at all. And so to try to broaden that base and to try to broaden that particular group of the party, what's going to happen is, as you're trying to, let's make some exceptions for murdering babies. Let's try to make some exceptions. We're gonna try to add some exceptions to this thing, or we're going to allow it to happen, in the first 15 weeks. Or we're going to once you get past, once you hear the heartbeat, then you can't have an abortion. You can't kill the baby anymore. But as long as you haven't heard the heartbeat, then it's okay, to kill the baby. Let me just make something very clear. I'm not teaming up with that. Like, I'm out. Like, I am not teaming up with pro-choice. I'm pro-life 100%, and we will remain, pro-life all the way.
Right. And what frustrates me most of all about this story that you shared with me about how the Republican Party, the leadership of the Republican Party, if we can even call them that, are trying to take the party in a more centrist or perhaps even left-leaning direction. What frustrates me most about it is that the Democratic Party right now is imploding, meaning now's not the time for the Republican Party to soften its stances. So I do want to go back to Joe Biden a little bit and what's happening with Joe Biden, because I think the collapse of Joe Biden and the Joe Biden campaign isn't just a collapse of a single campaign. I believe there is a sort of implosion of the entire Democratic Party that's taking place right now. So I think that what we're going to start seeing very soon is we're going to start seeing veteran U.S. senators and ranking members of the House of Representatives turning on Joe Biden, bringing the knives out against him, encouraging him, really demanding that he step down. There are already rumors circulating that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are working together to try and work behind the scenes to talk Joe Biden out of it. Likewise, I see Axios, Politico, CNN, MSNBC, countless commentators across these networks and these outlets, very reliably left-leaning people, coming out against Joe Biden, really starting to demand that he step down. Once again, I think that what we're seeing here is a slow collapse of the Democratic Party, and it just stuns me that as this is taking place, and let's make no mistake about it, it's totally unprecedented. The closest historical analogy I can think of is 1968, whenever LBJ stepped aside and Hubert Humphrey was becoming the Democratic nominee, and the Democratic delegates just came after him like wolves there at the DNC convention in 1968. But Hubert Humphrey was not the sitting U.S. president. Joe Biden is the sitting U.S. president, and as you said, he made a complete fool of himself. We saw that, the whole world saw that we have a cadaver, a cadaver pumped full of who knows how many pharmaceutical products, keeping him going. Sitting in the White House as commander-in-chief. This is a person who has access to the nukes, presumably. So we're seeing a total disintegration of the Democratic Party, I think, from within over the issue of Joe Biden. They're so set on getting rid of Donald Trump, but they're stuck with Joe Biden. That's causing a lot of animosity, a lot of angst, a lot of nervousness among the Democrats. Why would the Republican Party, out of all the times it could shift itself further to the left, why would it choose right now to do this? Now is the time for the Republican Party, if any, now is the time for the Republican Party to stay true to its values, to stand strong with those bold colors, not pastels, as Ronald Reagan put it many years ago. It frustrates me that our enemy is in the middle of making a mistake, and the people, so many of the leaders of our party are trying to make a mistake as well. I don't understand it. Why are we screwing up a perfectly good opportunity?
Yeah, I agree. Now, I just want to make it clear again that I'm not hearing this from within Mississippi.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is the RNC, the very same RNC that until just, a short time ago was being led by Ronna McDaniel, a member of the Romney political dynasty, right? I think Whatley, he seems to be a far better RNC chair than she was, without question. But it does make me wonder, who do you think could be behind this? I can't see Donald Trump or his camp being the one behind trying to take the party in a further left direction. I mean, do you have any theories on who could be behind this this presumed shift?
So I think there are a few people within the party, that's on the national level who thinks that, well, in order to beat Joe Biden, we have to broaden that base a little bit. And so we want to reach out, and we want to, reach out a little bit into that pro-choice group and try to make some exceptions and try to, soften up our stance, on abortion.
Don't they want to remove the Life Amendment from the RNC platform? So the Life Amendment, which is, the part of our platform that expresses our support for a constitutional amendment protecting life, don't they want to remove that?
There's some talks, absolutely, that's going on about, some of the people wanting to try to remove, certain key elements. Even whenever it comes to marriage, they're wanting, there's some talk, some people trying to want to soften up the stance on marriage. And what's going to happen is, now this is not, so far, I will say this too, this hasn't gotten a lot of steam yet. Right now they're just trying to put some things out there, to try to say some things. to try to see if it will get some steam. That's why I wanted to talk about this today, to try to head this off as Republicans. And let's make sure, and call our leadership, on the state level and on the national level, and make sure that they know that we are not for changing our stance at all. Like, we're not for changing our stance when it comes to life. We're not for changing our stance whenever it comes to marriage. We're not for changing our stance on any of these key issues. And so it's important, because here's another issue. When you start bringing in and you start broadening, that base to try to bring in some of these different types of people, you're going to bring in their ideology on everything as well.
And once you've done that, it makes you wonder what's even the point anymore, right? So let's look at the four largest political parties in America. Obviously, the Republicans and the Democrats, but the Libertarian Party is number 3, which we've spent plenty of time reeling into the Libertarian Party. Yeah. And the fourth largest political party is the Green Party. Now, why am I focusing on those 4? Because out of the 4 largest political parties in America, only one is pro-life. And according to what we're discussing here, it seems like even that could be compromised.
If we're not careful, it can be. That's why we need to make sure that we are letting our leadership know. Now in Harrison County, here in Mississippi, we have a very strong conservative, Republican executive committee. Pete Wilson's our chairman. He's amazing. He's a strong pro-life, pro-military, pro-Second Amendment. Pro-speech. He's a very strong conservative. And that executive committee in Harrison County is loaded with people that believe like we believe. And even on the state here in Mississippi, that state party is loaded with people that believe, like we believe whenever it comes to our core values. But whenever you get on, I'm talking about when you get to that national level, right. People looking at the entire nation, they're saying, well, in order to win more seats, to broaden the Republican, brand, we have to widen our tent a little bit. And so we start trying to let some of these people in our tent, and say, we're going to make some exceptions. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then you start losing, people that made this party strong. You're going to start losing some of this strong Christian base. A lot of America, listen, that group that is getting up on Sunday morning and going to church, and they're going to church on Sunday night, and they're involved in their church throughout the week, and they're bringing their son and daughter to Little League baseball and Little League soccer, and they're getting up every morning and going to work. And that group is not very loud on social media. That group is not going to be, very, very loud whenever it comes to voicing their opinions. But they're there. And there's a very strong group of Christian, men, Christian women who are trying to raise their families, who's engaged with their families, who's plugged in with their families. They're going to church, as much as they possibly can. A lot of them are involved in their church. And they're like us, and they're not going to waver on their stance either. And so that's one reason why shows like God and Country is so important, is because we can help educate them on what's happening and what's going on. Because they might not, be checking the news every single day, but I know a lot of them that'll watch this show, and they'll say, hey, you know what, we have, the Republican Party, some of the national level is trying to take the party a little bit to the left. Well, then they can send an email, or they can send a text message or a phone call to their state leadership and let their state leadership know, hey, look, we're not interested in going to the left. We want to if anything, we want to go more to the right. We want to get away from that Absolutely. Democrat Party. Because even if you look at the Republican Party, unfortunately, it has gone a little bit to the left when it comes to spending.
Yes, absolutely.
Listen, we're over $34 trillion in debt, and I'm not going to put all that blame on the Democrat Party. The Republicans Absolutely. Have helped whenever it comes to that debt. You don't get $34 trillion in debt by yourself. And one party does not lead that as far as being $34 trillion in debt. You have to have Democrats and Republicans both. And so the Republican Party has already went to the left whenever it comes to spending. We need to get our spending under control and come back to the right. And someone asked me the other day, they said, how do you do that? And I like a line-by-line budget item, is what I would say, because, so many times whenever you're looking at that budget, and it's I'm just going to use these numbers, right, because I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. But say the budget's $100, which we know that the budget's a whole lot more than $100, but I'm going to use that for simple math. If it's $100, and if you've got $5 going to, North Korea, then you got $4 going to Iran, and you got $3 going to Ukraine, and you got $1 going to Israel, and you got $2 going to, this country for studying transgenders, and you got this $4 going to study rats, and you have all kind of crazy stuff in that budget. I mean, things that are just ridiculous in that budget. I would love to see a line by line where you can veto that.
This is what Rand Paul has been talking about for many years.
Absolutely. Why are we sending Pakistan $1 to study rats?
Right.
You know, why?
Or have gender study programs in the country. You know,
why are we going to send these countries any money like that? Why are we sending North Korea or any of these countries? And I don't know if we're even sending North Korean money. I'm just using it for an example. Why are we sending any of these countries? I know we sent Iran money. Why are we sending them money? That is crazy. And so my point is simply this. We're $34 trillion in debt in spending here in our nation. And it's not just a Democrat's fault.
Right.
Many Republicans have voted to raise that debt ceiling. And so we've already gone to the left in spending. Now we're discussing Medicaid expansion in Mississippi and in other parts, of the nation. And so in order to get Medicaid expansion, it's going to take more than just the Democrat Party or the Republican Party. It's going to take those two parties, coming together to work together to try to get Medicaid expansion, which I oppose. Medicaid expansion. I oppose expanding government. Why are we trying to expand government? We need to be working to decrease government, not expand government. A lot of these departments, I hear certain, people within these departments wanting to, they want to expand even their departments, so they want to add, more departments. We need to be looking at ways to cut, because every single time you add to an apartment, to a department, you're adding tax money. And so, and how do you get more tax money? By raising the taxes on people. And so I said all that, Reed, and I know it went a long way to say this, but I said all that to say we've already gone to the left on spending, right? And I'm not sure if we can get a handle on it or not. I mean, I hope we can. I don't think we're going to get it under the leadership we have right now in D.C. I don't think we're going to get a handle on it. You're not going to get a handle on it under Joe Biden. You're not going to get a handle on it underneath the leadership that we have right now. Hopefully, when Donald Trump wins in November, hopefully he can get up there. We can take back the Senate, take back the House, and he can get a handle on that. But we've already gone to the left that area. Now they want to try to bring us to the left on life. They want to try to bring us to the left on marriage. They want to try to bring us to the left on, we're going to accept transgender.
So that the Republican Party of today will be what the Democratic Party was 10 years ago, essentially. Michael Malice, I think I've mentioned him on this show before. He makes this remark, and I agree with it to an extent. He says, conservatism is just progressivism driving the speed limit. So you said a few minutes ago, if anything, the Republican Party needs to be further to the right. I 100% agree. The Republican Party does need to be moving further to the right. Fortunately, abolishing the IRS has become a more common platform, a more common talking point among Republicans. But where are the Republicans talking about abolishing the Department of Education or the Department of Energy? These are two departments that were founded by President Jimmy Carter. So did we not have education before the 1970s? Of course we did. Did we not have energy in this country prior to the 1970s? Of course we did. Whenever the left looks at these government agencies that are founded, they think that without those government agencies, we wouldn't have whatever it is those government agencies are named for, right?
Yeah.
I think that we wouldn't have education if it weren't for the Department of Education. I remember it was Betsy DeVos. She was made Secretary of Education under Trump. And there was all the headlines circulating about her. Oh my gosh, she's going to completely undo the education system in this country, blah, 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 blah. So where are the Republicans talking about actually actively cutting back on the ways that the uniparty, meaning the Republican establishment and the Democratic Party, have expanded government over the last century or so? Where are the Republicans talking about abolishing the Federal Reserve, about abolishing the CIA or the FBI? To an extent, abolishing some of those agencies and organizations has entered the Overton window over the last several years, but I think the Republican Party does need to be further to the right.
Well, what happens is the more left we go, what's the need in the party?
Well, that's exactly right. There's no point in the Republican Party after a point. So I'm a Republican, just like you, but I'm not a loyalist to the Republican Party, and I think you probably agree with me along these lines. The Republican Party is only useful to the extent that it can be used to advance conservative Christian values. Once it abandons that, it's completely lost me. Well, so I'm loyal to the Republican Party to the extent that it's loyal to me.
Well, once the Republican Party, if the Republican Party abandons Christian principles that are based upon the Bible, there are some issues. There are a lot of people in our nation. There's a lot of people in Mississippi. There's a lot of people in Louisiana, Alabama. They are very strong whenever it comes to moral issues, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to pro-life when it comes to certain Second Amendment, whenever it comes to speech. They stand very strong on those issues. They're not as strong whenever it comes to spending. They're not as strong as whenever it comes to foreign aid. Because if you talk to some of these, because let me just be honest with you, if you talk to some of these Christians, like people like me, I have a hard time balancing, you've got a country in need. If we can help this country, then let's help this country. And so that's part of me that wants to try to say that. But then the other part of me says, okay, if you want to help this country, well, then take money out of your own pocket and give it. Don't expect Reed to give his money. I can't expect you to go give your money. And if I'm sending taxpayer money to help other countries, then I'm sending your money to help these other countries, and I shouldn't be able to do that. My point is simply, there's a lot of people in our nation that are Republicans because of the moral issues, more so than whenever it comes to the spending and whenever it comes to those type of issues. They're Republican because they're pro-life.
Culture drives preferences at least as much as policy, probably much more. Absolutely.
They're Republican because they're pro-marriage. They're Republican because they see that the Democrats are trying to broaden the drag queens and let drag queens come in to our libraries and talk to our 5-year-old little girls and little boys, and we're like, I'm not letting that happen. That's crazy. And so I'm a Republican. Republicans are standing against that mess. And so they're Republican because they're for marriage between one man and one woman. And we're Republican because we're against these transgender surgeries for our children. And I'm a Republican because of this. And so they're Republican because of these moral issues. Whenever you start changing that and you start backing off on those moral issues, you don't give people the reason to be a Republican anymore. Now you're just like the Democrat Party. And so that's one reason why I just want to mention this very, very carefully. If you, as the Republican Party, if we start changing these type of ideas and these type of policies, if we start changing this, we're going to lose a lot of people.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The MyPillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, MyPillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took MyPillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented MyPillow to bring you the best pillow in history, MyPillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that MyPillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. MyPillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of MyPillow.
The MyPillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last MyPillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. MyPillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new MyPillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.
Because at the end of the day, now, you might call yourself a Republican, but really you're Republican in name only. You're more like a Democrat, or you're more like a Libertarian. You're just a Republican in name only. We have a platform, and we have a platform for a reason. We have a platform. The state of Mississippi has a platform. In our Republican platform, we just voted on it a couple weeks ago at state convention. And this is what I'm saying. This is not on the state level, because in our platform, we're very strong pro-life. 100%.
Would you say that the Mississippi Republican Party is the most conservative, chapter of the Republican Party in the United States? It's pretty close. Maybe it's pretty close.
Man, I would think I would think so. Now I'm seeing some good things come across from some, like Louisiana just passed, the 10 Commandments, being put on the in the public schools, in the classrooms. And I've seen a lot of people get on social media that get mad about that. Let me just say this about that since we brought that up. Because here's where my stance is on this. This is the United States of America. This is a country that was founded upon Christian principles. This is a country that the Constitution has 17 biblical principles in the Constitution. This is not a perfect nation at all. We have made our mistakes. We've got some part of our history that I don't think we need to erase. We need to learn from it, which I think is important. I think erasing history is not good. I think we can learn from history. And so Louisiana passed a law that the 10 Commandments are going to be placed in the classroom. Oklahoma just passed a law last week that the Bible is going to be taught in the school. I think that's wonderful. I think it's great. Some people would disagree with me, but listen to me very carefully. This is a Christian nation. If you're a Muslim and if you don't like that, then you work to get your religion passed to be put in schools. If you don't like it, this is America. This is a Christian nation. This is not India, or this is not Iraq, or this is not Iran. This is a Christian nation. This is not a Muslim nation. This is not a Hindu nation. This is not a Buddhist nation. This is a nation that is a Christian nation. We still have in God we trust on our money. And so I said all that to say, I think that's wonderful. But you know why that happened, Reed? It happened because of the Republican Party. It happened because Republicans pushed that bill. The Democrat Party was not pushing that bill in Louisiana. It was a bunch of Republicans. In Oklahoma, I haven't read the whole bill, but here's what I'll tell you. The Democrat Party's not pushing to study the Bible in schools. Now, not all Democrats are anti-Bible. I know some Democrats that are pro-Bible, and I know some Democrats that are pro-life as well. What I'm saying is this, that's part of that Republican Party. So I see some things that Louisiana's doing, which I pastor in Louisiana, so we help push, the 10 Commandment bill. I see some things in Oklahoma, and I think it's great and wonderful. Is Mississippi the most conservative? If it's not the most conservative, it's in the top 3 or 4.
Top 3 or 4.
I mean, it's there.
I can live with that.
It's there. I think we have a new chairman. Frank Bordeaux was our chairman for several years. I think he did a good job. I think he did great underneath the leadership of our governor, Tate Reeves. I think he did well. Speaking of which, Mississippi, whenever Tate Reeves was lieutenant governor, we passed the strongest pro-life bill in the nation, which went to the Supreme Court, which overturned Roe underneath Governor Tate Reeves, or Lieutenant Governor Tate Reeves and Governor Phil Bryant. And so that's huge. That's great. And at that time, we had Frank Bordeaux was a great chairman, and then now we have Mike Hurst as our new chairman. So I think those guys, I think they're very strong whenever it comes to conservative. I think on the moral issues, and I think even on policy, I think they're very strong conservative. Even our governor, is very strong on policy. He came out anti-Medicaid expansion. And he's the reason why Medicaid expansion did not get passed in Mississippi was because Governor Tate Reeves opposed it and stood against it, as he should. Because in the Republican platform, we are not for expanding government. We are for shrinking government. Unfortunately, there are some in the Republican Party that are for expanding government. And they are what I Republican in name only.
Rhinos.
And so my point is simply this. That's why we have to push back. We have to say, no, we don't need to change our platform. We're doing just as fine. The Democrat Party is imploding. Let's not implode our own selves by trying to change our platform. Let's stay pro-life. Matter of fact, if anything, let's get a little more stronger on our pro-life stance. Let's start arresting people that are murdering babies underneath the guise of abortion. Let's start putting those doctors in jail for murder.
That's what needs to happen.
Yeah, if we're going to do anything, and then let's put that mom in jail for accomplice. And so if we're going to do anything, let's strengthen our stand whenever it comes to pro-life. Let's not weaken our stand whenever it comes to pro-life. Hey, whenever it comes to these drag queens, it will snow in hell. I'm just telling you right now, it ain't happening. It will never happen. You can take this. You can take this to the bank. It ain't happening. I will never, ever, unless I go crazy and lose my mind. I will never be for these perverts dressing like women and going and dancing in front of a bunch of 5, 6-year-old little girls or little boys. It ain't happening. And instead of promoting that garbage, let's arrest them. Let's arrest them for exposing themselves to these children. It's a bunch of perverts, and they need to be arrested for what they are whenever they go and expose themselves and dance in little short miniskirts on in front of these children. And so we don't need to soften our stance on these drag queens. We need to arrest them, put them in jail. You're walking down the street naked. We don't need to soften our stance whenever it comes to the gay community. Instead, you're marching down the street naked. They are to be put in jail. Reed, if I go get drunk and I go down to Jones Park and I run around Jones Park naked, you know what's going to happen to me?
Thanks for putting that image in my head, Dan. I can pretty well, yeah.
They're going to come down there and they're going to say, what is Dan? Dan has lost his mind.
Dan must be a Democrat now.
He's going crazy. And so they're going to arrest me. My picture, the Sun Herald would love. Now, the WX, they would love to have my picture on their front page. You know, Dan Carr arrested, for streaking. And so, and that's what ought to happen. That's what ought to happen. Right. If I'm streaking, they are to arrest. And so whenever you have these gay men, these homosexual men marching down the street, and sorry for using the word gay, homosexual men marching down the street, whenever they're marching down the street naked, we shouldn't applaud that mess. Oh, they're living there. They're free. That ain't freedom. That's wicked and straight out of the very pit of hell. They are to be arrested. We shouldn't soften our stance on that. If anything, we're to strengthen our stance. Start arresting them. Start putting them in jail. Not for marching and not for being homosexual. Put them in jail for marching naked. For marching naked in front of the whole world. They should have the right to march.
Public indecency is a crime. When did it stop being a crime to be publicly indecent? I don't understand.
Absolutely. I mean, they should be able to march if they want to march. This is America. They do have that freedom. If a man wants to marry a man or a man wants to be with a man, he has that right. He has that freedom, to do whatever he wants to do as far as that goes. I can't tell him he can't. He can do what he wants as far as his life is concerned. But you should be marching down the street naked.
Right.
You shouldn't be dancing in front of a bunch of 5, 6-year-old little girls in a library, half naked. That's against the law. Those people are to be arrested. My point is simply, we shouldn't be softening our stance. We should stand strong.
Amen.
Stand firm.
Amen. I totally agree. And I think what all this shows here, Dan, is that the people leading the Republican National Committee see ordinary Christian conservatives like me and you as a big fat inconvenience. If they could expand the tent, if they could broaden the tent, so to speak, and completely forget about us and completely just leave us behind, I think they would do it in a heartbeat. I don't think that the people leading the Republican Party on the national level, I understand that the state party is very good, but the people leading the Republican Party on the national level, I don't think they actually care about Christian conservative values. I don't. That could be a very bold claim. Once again, I think that the Republican Party is only useful insofar as it is useful for advancing Christian conservative values. Like I said, I don't think they care about us. I think that behind closed doors, the Ronna McDaniels of the world, the Romneys of the world, the McCains, the Bushes of the world, the people who are, if we're honest, are actually controlling the Republican National Committee, such people and all their acolytes and all their puppets, such people disparage us. Such people talk so much smack about ordinary Christian conservative folks like us that I think the higher up you go in the Republican Party, the more out of touch and the more hostility there is from them to people just like us.
Well, there are some people, Reed, we call them Republican in name only, and then there are some people that are Christian in name only. And I'm not talking about perfection, right? We all fail. I have made so many mistakes in my life, and I'm thankful that God forgives me, and I'm thankful that I serve a merciful God, who forgives all my sin, and whenever I got saved, he forgave me of every past sin, present sin, and future sin. And I'm thankful for that. I've got a lot of work to do still as a Christian as far as growing in grace and growing in knowledge and growing in love. And I still got a lot of work to do. And by no shape of the imagination have I arrived. I've got a long way to go. And so you have people that are Republican in name only, then you have people that are Christian in name only. They use the Republican name to get elected. Right. And then they change, their values, or they vote a different way. There's a lot of people who do the same thing with Christian. They use the Christian name to get elected, and then they walk away from those Christian values. They use the pro-life message to get elected, and then they walk away from that. They use the pro-marriage message, and then they walk away from that. They use I'm going to be a conservative whenever it comes to spending. and then they walk away from that. They used the church to get elected. They used Christians to get elected. And so, unfortunately,
I would wager that at least half of all people in Congress are this way. Are people who, they talk a very good game about their faith. They check off all the right boxes as far as what they're saying on the campaign trail whenever it comes to their faith or what church they belong to or whatever else. But deep down, they know that they're a fraud. They're okay with being a fraud, and they're going to continue to be a fraud as long as being a fraud benefits them, right? Like I said, I think it's a bold claim, but I think probably the majority of people in Congress are this way. And it wouldn't surprise me to discover that at least half of our presidents have been this way.
So there are, unfortunately, and I agree with you, but I'm thankful that there are some that are not that way.
Absolutely.
I'm thankful that there are some Christians. Listen, I think about, several congressmen, U.S. senators in D.C., that I believe that they are strong Christians, and I believe that they are strong Christians behind closed doors. I really love it whenever they post Bible verses on their social media. I think it's great. Anytime I see, one of them post a Bible verse, of course, I'll try to like it, comment on it, and maybe even share it. Even if I don't agree with them or align with them on every single vote that they make, I love it whenever they promote biblical values, Bible verses. I like it whenever they're using that platform that God has given them to promote Christian values. And so, but I agree, there are a lot of people in D.C. that are Christian in name only. And
as bad as this is, I think the president of the United States is one of them. I mean, he calls himself a Catholic. But I have no idea how often he goes to mass, and he's pro-choice. I don't think there's really a Christian bone in his body, if I can be fair. Now, maybe I'm unjustified in making such a claim, but that's my assessment here.
So, Reed,
judge them by their fruits, right?
Yeah. So my point is, and I'm not their judge, but I have a hard time believing that anyone can be a Christian and be pro-choice.
And that's probably the point that I'm getting to here.
Yeah, I just have a hard time. I have a hard time believing. that anyone. Now, let me say this because I don't want people to take what I'm saying and twist them. So let me say this: I believe being saved and being Christ-like are two different things. So I believe that a person can be saved and go to heaven and not be living like a Christian. So let me give you an example. So I pastor a church, and we have a great church. We have a good church. And this is not going on in my church at all, but I'm just going to use my church for an example. If you have somebody in the church that is gossiping a lot, that is, being a talebearer or being a backbiter or being a busybody, going around behind, trying to nitpick and gossip about people, I think that's wicked. I think that's mad. I think that hurts the church more than anything. I said this in my church all the time. Like, I very rarely get up in my church and preach against gambling or I do, or drunkenness or drugs, those type of things, because that really doesn't affect my church. I do hit on it from time to time, but what affects my church is gossip and talebearing and those type of things. And those things will hurt and destroy a church. And Reed, I believe that there's a lot of people in our churches that are gossipers and that are talebearers. They might be saved, but they're not living like a Christian. And so I think that there are people in D.C. that might be saved. They might have accepted Christ as a personal savior, but they're not living like a Christian.
Or legislating like a Christian.
Correct. And so I try to be very careful with that, as far as being a Christian and being saved. Now, a person can be saved and not be living like a Christian, but you can't be living like a Christian and not be saved. And so, because a Christian is Christ-like. A Christian is someone that has a Holy Spirit and that's yielding to Christ, yielding to the Holy Spirit, dying to self, crucifying the flesh, the thoughts, the bad thoughts, the perversion in this world. And so, and I hope I'm not confusing people, but my point is, whenever it comes to being a Christian, living like a Christian and being saved is two different things, in my opinion. And I've got a lot of Bible to back that up. We don't have time to get into all of that in this show. So it aggravates me whenever people claim to be a Christian and they claim to be this spiritual giant and they get elected and then they go to D.C. and they legislate the complete opposite. They run on the core principles of being a Christian and being pro-life and being this and being that, and then they go to D.C. and they change because they make some backroom deal or because they want to stay elected. Somebody calls them into the room and says, well, the pro-choice people in your party are growing, and if you don't If you don't soften your stance and you're not going to get reelected, then so be it. Don't get reelected. Don't soften your stance. Remain firm in your values. And we as a party, we must remain firm in our values. We must be unwavering, and we must be committed in our support for pro-life. We must be unwavering in our support of marriage. We must be unwavering in our support of big government. And we must be unwavering in the desire and the goals and the attempts to shrink government, not expand government. And unfortunately, we're being told by some people in the leadership that we need to soften our stance in some of these areas. And that's going to be bad for the party. That's going to be bad for getting good people elected on the national level. Now, Reed, here's what's going to happen. If the Republican Party soften their stance on these issues, it's not that we will not still get good people elected, because good people will still run for office and they will still have these strong core principles, and they will still get, some of these people will still get elected.
And they will still prefer the Republican Party over the Democrats and the Libertarians.
Correct.
Sure.
But what's going to happen is the Republican Party is going to lose a lot of their workforce, because a lot of your workers in the Republican Party, on the executive committee, on the clubs, a lot of your workers are people that are strong pro-life, people that are strong Second Amendment, people that are strong marriage. Those are your workers. These people that are pro-choice, they're not going to be your strong workers in the Republican Party. You know, the people that are for same-sex marriage, those people are not going to be strong in the Republican Party. They're going to be strong in the Democrat Party. They're not going to want to come over and work to try to get Republicans elected, especially not Republicans like me. You know, they're going to have a hard time with Republicans like me trying to get a Republican like me elected. So I think what will happen, and the potential of happening, is you start bringing some of these people into the party whenever it comes at the end of the day, and you've got a Democrat running, and you've got a Republican running, and you've got this Republican that is pro-life, that is pro-Second Amendment, that is pro-marriage, that is anti-drag queens, that is for use your bathroom of your gender, male use male, females use female bathrooms. And then you have this guy over here he's a Democrat, but he is pro-choice, he is pro-drag queens, he is all this. And then you have this Republican who aligns more with this Democrat than they do the Republican. What's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of Republicans voting for a Democrat, and we're going to end up losing some elections because of this. And so we cannot waver. We cannot waver in this arena.
Essentially, the leadership of the Republican Party is inviting subterfuge. They're inviting sabotage into their own party, because just like you said, I think you're referring to the staffers. So like the staffers of the Republican National Committee of the Republican Party, they're not going to want to remain working hard inside the Republican Party for candidates that are pro-choice. What's going to happen is those spots are going to be filled by more, squishy, moderate, or left-leaning pro-choice people who call themselves Republicans. Once again, that's just a recipe for sabotage. And I don't know what to make of it. I think that a lot more is going to surface about this story. But in the meantime, I am going to be tempted to wonder if there's not some sort of deliberate, compromise of the Republican Party happening from within at the uppermost levels of the party.
And that's why we on the state level, we must remain vigilant. We must remain sober. We must remain steadfast. And we must remain working to make sure that the national committee and those at that top, that they know that we're not backing off. Like we are not going to compromise at all our stance. And that's why I love God and country. That's why I love this show. Because we talk about these things that for some people it will be very uncomfortable to sit here and talk about in front of a camera, knowing that thousands of people are going to be watching this, and people are going to get an opinion of what we are saying and what we believe. And listen, I want to make something very clear also. I'm not anti-Republican, obviously. I'm a Republican, and through and through. I mean, I go to the executive committee and the club lunches and the socials, and I do all of those things, and I'm a very strong Republican.
You're against weakness in the Republican Party.
I'm against weakening the party to bring in 1 or 2% of the people, and it's going to cost us 10%.
Yep.
It's going to cost us, and maybe even more than 10%. So we're going to try to bring in 1,000 people, and we're going to lose 100,000 people. That's what I'm against. And plus, I'm against softening our stance on issues that are very strong in my Christian faith, because there's a lot of us that we might not agree on doctrine when it comes to the Bible. There's a lot of different religions out there, like Baptist and Pentecostal and Catholic and and Church of God and Church of Christ, we disagree on doctrine. You know, I'm sure you and I have some doctrinal differences, but whenever it comes to pro-life, I've got a lot of Pentecostal friends. We don't agree when it comes to speaking in tongues, but we agree 100% when it comes to pro-life. 100%. That's why they go to the Pentecostal church, and that's why I go to the Baptist church. But the reason why we're Republican is because we're pro-life. We're pro-life. I've got friends that are Catholic, and they go and they confess. They do rosaries, and they confess in a booth to a priest. They believe that the wafer turns into the body of Christ.
Yeah.
The Eucharist. Yeah. They believe that that is the very blood. They believe those things. I don't agree. I disagree with some of those things doctrinally. That's why they go to the Catholic Church. That's why I go to the Baptist church.
But none of that matters whenever it comes to engaging the political arena, because on the issue of abortion, for example, we're all pro-life.
We're lockstep.
Right.
We're lockstep.
We're going to work together.
When it comes to pro-life, we're lockstep. And so what's going to happen is the Republican Party's looking and they're going to soften their stance. Well, they're going to lose Pentecostal. They're going to lose Catholic. They're going to lose Baptist. They're going to lose lots of people, on the religious spectrum, because they're going to soften on pro-life. Because me and my Pentecostal friend, we might disagree when it comes to speaking in tongues, but we agree 100% on pro-life. We agree 100% on marriage. We agree 100% that drag queens don't need to be in our libraries. We agree 100% on religious liberty. We agree on, whenever it comes to expanding government, that we should not be expanding government. And so you're going to lose Pentecostals, you're going to lose Baptists, you're going to lose Catholic, you're going to lose all of these different men and women that are in all of these different denominations, because we might not agree doctrinally, but whenever it comes to some of these issues,
right,
our faith that we have, that foundation of our faith, it is very pro-life.
And to be clear, it's not just people across Christianity you will lose by softening pro-life language. I know a lot of people who are they're not even Christian.
Absolutely.
They're secular people. Some of them might be atheists. Some of them might be agnostic. But they're moral people.
Correct.
They're people with some sense of ethics, and they agree with us on the issue of abortion. So, a large proportion of the people you're going to lose are going to be Christians across all denominations. But you're just going to lose the moral backbone. You're going to lose the moral fiber of the party altogether. So, like I said, it makes me wonder, what's the point? There really is no point in the Republican Party if it compromises on, let's say, abortion. And people in the audience are going to say, well, abortion is just one issue. There are a ton of other issues. But as I've said before, a candidate with bad judgment on the issue of abortion is going to have bad judgment on any number of other issues.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. And Reed, let me tell you this. You say, what is the reason? What is the end goal? So let's look at it spiritually. We got 5 minutes left. Let's look at it from the spiritual side. God has blessed this country. I believe that the blessings of God have been on our country from the very beginning, from the foundation. Whenever our founding fathers, whenever they wrote that declaration, they sent it to the king. They put their signatures on that. We just celebrated July 4th, Independence Day last week. They signed that declaration. They sent it to the king. This country was founded and built upon Christian principles. Satan wants to destroy this country. I do not believe that there is one nation in the world that can defeat the United States of America. Reed, I would even take it a step further. I don't think the whole world, I think if the whole world turned against us, I think we'd be fine. I think a lot of people would die, unfortunately, but I think America, our military is so far and advanced. I mean, our military is unbelievable. The Marines and the Navy and the Air Force and the Army and our Coast, all of it is just, it's unbelievable at what we have. We have the greatest fighting force ever been known to man. I believe that America would be fine. But America cannot be fine without the blessings of God.
The only country that can defeat America is America itself.
Absolutely. And how will that happen? From within. We start changing our stance on some of these issues. And all of us, what if we all turn to pro-choice? We're just going to turn into a pagan nation. What if all of us start, we're all promoting this drag queen mess? What happens is we'll become the Roman Empire. We'll become like Rome. And we all know what happened to Rome. Rome fell. I love my country. I love the United States of America. I'm so thankful that I get to live here. And I don't want to see God remove his hand from her. I want to see God keep his hand of protection. And I think as long as we have that remnant, go back to Sodom and Gomorrah for a moment, and Sodom and Gomorrah got destroyed. Remember that? And God was having a conversation with Abraham, and Abraham said, if I could find 50, what did God say? He said, if you could find 50, I won't destroy it. Abraham came back and said, what about 40?
Narrowed it all the way down to 10.
All the way down to 10 and still couldn't find 10. Still couldn't find 10, and God wiped it out. I believe that there's a remnant here in these United States of America, and God has kept his hand over her because of that remnant. And I believe that remnant is that pro-life group. I believe that remnant is standing for marriage. I believe that remnant is standing for our Bible and for those values that come from the Bible. I believe that remnant is the Christians. I believe that remnant is keeping the hand of God on the United States of America. But if we start changing what we believe in, we start changing our core values, we start changing our stance on what we believe, I believe God will remove that hand. I believe that we have seen some of God's judgment, but I don't believe that God has totally removed his hand from America.
Right.
Because America is still a good nation. As we have problems, yes, we have issues. Yes, we need a new president. But at the end of the day, America is still a good nation.
There are far more than 10 righteous people in America still. He hasn't given up on us yet. I totally agree.
America's still a great nation, doing great things. America's still sending out missionaries all over the world. America's still trying to get Bibles all over the world. America's still doing a lot of great things. That's why we must continue to fight back and push back. And whenever we hear within the party that there is some thoughts of trying to change some of our core principles as a party, we stand and say no. Not on our watch. We're not changing. We're going to remain steadfast, unmovable, always abounding. We're not stopping. We're not changing. Reed, we're running out of time. And I believe we got about 1 minute left. Do you have anything that you want to mention in that 30 seconds?
Well, Dan, this was a fantastic episode. Once again, I'm glad to be back here. We have to keep the Republican Party strong. We have to keep it conservative, just like you guys are holding down the fort here with the Mississippi chapter. Love to see it. Love to hear it. Dan, thank you again.
Reed, thank you. And I want to say this really quick. As far as this episode, God and Country on YouTube, God and Country on X, God and Country on all across the different social media platforms. Help us by sharing. Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, it's not particularly keen on this type of shows. And so in order to get out our message, we need you. We need you to help us. The algorithm will never be in our favor, but you can be. So please share. Help us get out our message. And if you're interested in supporting God and Country, please reach out to Reed and ask him, how can you get involved? How can you get engaged? How can you help support God and Country? Once again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and God bless the great United States of America.
Hey guys, it's Reed here. I don't say this about a lot of people, but I have to say Mike Lindell is a real patriot, and we could not be more thankful to him and MyPillow for sponsoring today's episode of God and Country. Remember, go to MyPillow.com and save huge on a great night of sleep by entering the promo code Midnight Ride. Thanks.